My son said he was paralyzed. He cried. He said he did not want to be a burden. I believed him. I paid for everything. Nurses, therapies, medicine, until one day I opened the door to his mansion, and I saw him dancing, laughing, with my money. If you are listening to my story, subscribe to William's Revenge Stories right now. We tell stories here that will make you question everything you thought you knew about your own family. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from. My name is Oliver Bertram. I am 71 years old, and I am not here to cry. I am here to tell you what I saw, what I discovered, what made me understand that sometimes the person you love the most knows exactly how to stick the knife in. On September 23rd, around 10 at night, I parked my truck 2 blocks from my son's house. I did not ring the bell. I did not call. I used the key I always had. I opened the door, and what I saw inside. What I saw made me never want to trust anyone again. There was music, not soft music, music that vibrated the walls, colored lights flashing like a nightclub, the smell of expensive perfume mixed with spilled whiskey and laughter. So much laughter. In the center of the room, with a crystal glass in his hand, moving his hips to a song I did not recognize, was Leo, my son, the one doctors said would never walk again. He was dancing, like he had never been in a wheelchair, as if the last 8 months had been a damn movie that I paid for, not knowing it was fiction. Beside him, in a tight red dress, was Valerie, the nurse I paid $4,000 a month to take care of him. But she was not wearing a white uniform that night. No, she was wearing stilettos and holding a glass of champagne. She was laughing, pressing against him, kissing his neck while he held her by the waist. And around them, 5 or 6 other young people, all toasting, all shouting, all celebrating something I did not understand, until one of them, a tall guy with an unbuttoned shirt, raised his glass and said, "To Leo, the best actor I know," and they all burst out laughing. I did not move. I just stood there. The door opened to the cold night air. It hit the back of my neck. For 8 months I had believed every word, every tear, every medical report. For 8 months I drove 3 hours every 2 weeks to visit him, to bring him fruit, to hug him, to tell him everything would be okay. For 8 months, I transferred $9,500 a month to his account, over $100,000 in total, all to maintain a lie that was now dancing in front of me, with a drink in his hand and a smile I had never seen before. My son was not paralyzed. He never was. And the worst part is, he was not alone in this. No. Every person I thought was caring for him. Every health professional who gave me reports. Every tear he shed when I arrived. It was all part of a plan so well executed that even a man like me, who has spent 40 years closing deals and spotting lies, fell for it like an idiot. Because when it is your son, when it is your blood, you do not look for the lie. You look for hope. And they knew that, and they used it against me. I built my company from nothing. Bertram Construction, 40 years of putting up buildings, negotiating contracts, sweating under the sun while I laid bricks with my own hands. Today I bill over $20 million a year. I have 200 employees, 3 warehouses, trucks, and machinery. Everything I touch turns to money. But that night, standing in the doorway of that house, watching my son laugh with his glass of whiskey, I felt like the poorest man in the world. Because all that money, all that power, had done nothing to help me see what was right in front of me. A son who would rather steal from me than work. Teresa, my wife, died a year ago. A massive heart attack while she was making breakfast. She was gone in seconds, without a goodbye. I buried her with a broken heart, but also with the certainty that she had been a good woman. A woman who loved me, who raised our son with values. Or so I thought. Now, standing in that living room, seeing what Leo had done, I could only think one thing. Thank God she was gone before she saw what our son became. Thank God she did not have to see this. because this would have killed her all over again. What I saw that night was not just a betrayal. It was a setup, a stage play where every actor knew their part, and I was the only audience member who did not know I was watching fiction. Valerie was not a nurse. The guys who were always there when I visited, the ones in white coats who spoke in medical terms, they were not therapists. They were Leo's friends, accomplices, and they all got their cut of my $9,500 a month. They were all splitting the loot while I worked 14-hour days, thinking I was saving my son. It took me 5 seconds to process what I was seeing. 5 seconds where my brain tried to find an explanation. A miracle? A sudden recovery? Something I did not understand. But no, there was no explanation. There was only the truth. A truth so raw it hurt my bones. My son had deceived me, and he had done it with a terrifying precision, because to lie like that, to plan something like that, you have to be cold. You have to have ice in your veins. And I never thought my own blood could be so cold. Then Valerie saw him. She saw me. Her eyes went wide as saucers. She let out a choked scream. The music was still playing, but her scream cut through everything. Leo, who had his back to me, stopped dancing. He froze, completely still, as if time had stopped. Then, slowly, he turned his head and saw me. Our eyes met, and in that moment, in that exact second, I saw something in his eyes I will never forget. I did not see regret. I did not see shame. I saw panic. The panic of a thief caught with his hands in the safe. The glass in his hand started to shake. His fingers lost their grip. The crystal fell. It shattered on the marble floor with a sound that split the air. The music stopped. Someone hit the button. The silence that followed was so heavy I felt like it was crushing me. All eyes were on me now. Leo's friends, Valerie, all frozen, as if they had just seen death walk in. And maybe they had. Maybe in that moment, the Oliver who left his house 3 hours earlier, the Oliver who still believed in his son, died right there, and another was born. One who no longer had room for forgiveness. To understand why it hurt so much, you need to know where I come from. I was born in a neighborhood in Dallas where the water came once a week, and the power went out every other day. My father was a construction worker. He killed himself working 10 hours under the sun for $30 a day. My mother washed clothes for rich families just to feed us. I was the oldest of 6 kids. I learned from the age of 8 that nobody in this life gives you anything. If you want to eat, you work. If you want to study, you work. If you want to live with dignity, you work your fingers to the bone. And that is what I did. At 19, I dropped out of school, not because I wanted to, but because there was no money. My father fell from scaffolding and broke his hip. Someone had to support the family. That someone was me. I got a job in a hardware store. I earned a pittance, but I was smart. I watched the customers. I learned what they needed, and one day I told the owner, "Let me sell door to door. I will bring you new clients." He gave me a toolbox, and I went out knocking, under the sun, in the rain. I had the door slammed in my face 1,000 times, but on the 1,001st, someone bought, and then another, and another. By 25, I had my own truck. By 30, my first storefront. By 40, 3 warehouses and 50 employees. By 50, I was a millionaire. But it was not luck. It was blood. It was not sleeping. It was sacrificing birthdays, Christmases, Sundays. It was watching my father die, knowing I had achieved what he never could. And when Leo was born, when I held that baby in my arms, I swore I would teach him the same thing my father taught me, the value of hard work. Because a man who does not know how to work is not a man. He is a parasite, and I was not going to raise parasites. That is why I never gave Leo anything easy. He worked at my company. Yes, in the warehouse, with the other employees. He earned $2,000 a month. He had an old 2015 Nissan. He lived in a 2-bedroom apartment that I rented to him. He did not lack anything, but he had no luxuries, and that drove him crazy. Dad, my friends go to Miami every month. They have Mercedes, and I am here, carrying boxes like an idiot. I always gave him the same answer, looking him straight in the eye. When you build your own business, you can travel wherever you want. But as long as you work for me, you live on what you earn. Teresa supported me. Well, most of the time. But there were nights. When we turned out the light, she would whisper quietly, "Oliver, maybe we should give him a little more. He is our only son." And I would stroke her cheek and say, "My love, if we give him everything now, he will never learn. It is better he suffers a little now and is strong later. Or do you want him to end up like those rich kids who are 40 and do not even know how to pay a bill?" She would sigh, kiss me, and fall silent. She trusted me. She always trusted me. I wish she had not. Leo hated me for that. He did not say it, but I saw it in his eyes, in how he looked at me when I pulled up to the office in my new truck, while he was still in his old Nissan, in how he gritted his teeth when his friends bragged about their vacations, and he had to say, "I cannot. I am working." I thought it was passing resentment, that in time he would understand, that one day he would thank me. But no, the resentment did not pass. It grew, it rotted, and it turned into something worse, into a plan to take everything from me without working another day in his life. 4 months after we buried Teresa, Leo came to see me. He was pale, dark circles under his eyes. He told me he could not take it anymore, that every corner of the city reminded him of his mother, that he needed to leave, to start over. I asked him, "Where?" He said, "Seaside Bay. It is a quiet city. I can work remotely in sales for the company from there." I thought about it, and I said yes. I would pay his rent for a year. I would help him get settled. But after that, he had to support himself. He agreed. He hugged me, and he said, "Thanks, Dad. I promise I will not disappoint you." And I believed him. God, how I believed him. He moved to Seaside Bay 3 weeks later, a coastal city, 3 hours from Dallas. Touristy, expensive. I rented him a large house with a garden, $2,000 a month. More than I wanted, but I thought, it is for a year. After that he can find something smaller. I helped him pack. We carried boxes together. We talked about what his new life would be like. He seemed excited, hopeful, and I was happy for him. I thought the change would do him good, that he would find peace, that maybe, away from me, he would learn to value what he had. What an idiot I was. How blind I was. 3 months after he moved, I got the call that would change everything. Or so I thought. Because in reality, that call did not change anything. It only revealed what was already there. The truth. The lie. The plan Leo had been cooking up since the day he moved. But I did not know that. I only knew my son was in trouble. And when a father hears his son is in trouble, he does not think. He does not analyze. He just runs. And that is exactly what I did. I ran right into the trap, with my eyes closed, with my heart open, and with my wallet ready to pay whatever it took. It was 2 a.m. The phone rang with that insistence that only bad news brings. I grabbed it. It was Leo, but it was not his voice. It was a moan, a broken cry. "Dad, Dad, please, come." I sat up in bed. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. What happened? Son? And then he told me. His voice choked with tears. "I had an accident. My car flipped on the highway. I am in the hospital. The doctor says that my spine... Dad, I cannot move my legs. The world stopped. The words would not come." And he continued, "Dad, I am paralyzed." I got dressed in the dark. I woke up my sister Martha. I told her, "Leo had an accident. It is bad." She did not even ask questions. She got dressed, and we left. 3 hours driving in silence on the empty highway. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Martha looked at me out of the corner of her eye, but said nothing. She just breathed deeply. When we got to the hospital, a doctor was waiting for us. Dr. Raymond Estrada, his name badge said. He took us to a room, showed us x-rays, talked to us about vertebrae, spinal cord, irreversible damage, and I just thought, my son is never going to walk again. And I broke down, right there, in front of the doctor. I broke. 2 days later, they let us take him out of the hospital. Leo was in a new, shining wheelchair, the kind that cost $3,000. I paid for it without asking the price. Martha pushed the chair while I carried the bags of medication. Leo was quiet, in his head down, as if he was ashamed to be seen like that. When we got to his house, I stopped short. The entrance had a new ramp, stainless steel railings on the walls. The door was wider. Inside, there was medical equipment everywhere. An oxygen tank, monitors, a hospital bed in the living room. Someone had turned this house into a hospital, and it all happened in 2 days. Who did all this? I asked Leo. He looked up with glassy eyes and said in a broken voice, Doctor, Estrada helped me find a rapid adaptation company. Dad, I do not want you to spend any more. I knelt by his chair, took his hand and said, I do not care what it costs. What matters is that you are okay. He shed a tear, a single tear that rolled down his cheek, and I wiped it away with my thumb. In that moment, I would have given my life for him. I would have sold my company, my house, everything, because that is what a father does. And Leo knew it. Oh, he knew it. Then I heard footsteps. I turned. A young man, about 30, was coming down the stairs. He was wearing a white coat, dark jeans, immaculate sneakers. He had gelled back hair and a professional smile that looked rehearsed. Good afternoon, Mr. Bertram. I am Ben Aguirre, certified nurse. I will be in charge of Leo's daytime care. He held out his hand. I shook it. His grip was firm, but his eyes, something in his eyes did not give me confidence. They were too bright, too alert, as if he was measuring my every reaction. But I ignored it. I was tired, scared, and I needed to believe someone would take care of my son. Then she appeared. Valerie. She came down the stairs with soft, almost silent steps. She wore a full white uniform, pants, blouse, closed-toe shoes. Her hair was up in a high ponytail. No makeup, or so it seemed. She looked about 32, maybe younger, honey-colored eyes, a sweet smile. She looked at me and said calmly, Mr. Bertram, I am Valerie Santander, a nurse specializing in rehabilitation. I will be with Leo 24 hours a day. You can rest easy. Something in her tone made me breathe easier. She seemed genuine. She seemed to really care, and I believed her. God, how I believed her. Because I never imagined that woman was not a nurse. She was an actress, and she was playing the role of her life. Martha said nothing. She just watched. She had stayed by the door, arms crossed, looking at Ben, then at Valerie, then at Leo. Her face showed no emotion, just analysis. I knew her. I had been her older brother for 68 years, and when Martha made that face, it meant something did not add up. I went over to her and whispered, What is it? She shook her head, quietly. Nothing, we will talk later. But I did not have time for her intuition. I had to organize everything. I had to make sure my son had the best. So I let her comment slide. Mistake number 2. Leo asked me to stay that night. Dad, please, I do not want to be alone. I agreed. Martha went to a hotel, and I stayed in the guest room. But I could not sleep. Every hour I got up to check on Leo, and every time I went into his room, there was Valerie, sitting in a chair by the bed, taking his blood pressure, checking his temperature, writing things in a notebook. So professional, so dedicated. Once I looked at her and said, Thank you for taking care of him. She smiled, with that smile that looked like it came from a hospital commercial. It is my job, Mr. Bertram. And besides, Leo is a very strong patient. I felt calm. I thought, my son is in good hands. What a fool I was. The next morning, Dr. Estrada came to the house. He carried a leather briefcase. He greeted Leo with familiarity, as if they were old friends. Then he asked to speak to me privately. We sat at the dining room table. He took out folders, x-rays, printed reports, with the logo of a clinic I had never heard of. Mr. Bertram, he began in a serious voice, Leo's injury is severe. Lumbar level 4 and 5. He has 50% sensitivity in his legs, but he cannot support his weight. He is going to need intensive physical therapy, permanent nurses, anti-inflammatory drugs, probably surgery in 6 months. I listened with a heavy heart, and then he asked, "Are you prepared for the costs?" "I do not care about the cost." I said without hesitation, "Do whatever is necessary. Hire whoever is necessary. If my son can improve even 1%, I will pay whatever it takes." The doctor nodded slowly, as if he expected that answer. He took out a sheet with a breakdown of expenses. He put it in front of me. Nurses, $4,500 a month. Specialized physical therapy, $3,000. Medications, $2,000. Equipment and supplies, $1,000. Total, $9,500 a month. I looked at it, I took a deep breath, and said, "Okay, I will transfer it every month." I signed a contract right there, without reading it completely, without asking for a second opinion, because I was desperate, and desperate people do not think. They just pay. What I did not know at that moment, what I could not even imagine, was that every word from that doctor was a lie, that those x-rays were from another patient, that the clinic on the logo did not exist, that Dr. Raymond Estrada had 3 ethical complaints against him, and sold fake reports for $5,000, that Ben was not a nurse, but Leo's best friend from college, that Valerie had never set foot in a nursing school in her life, that everything, absolutely everything I was seeing, was theater, a theater so well staged, that even a businessman like me, used to spotting fraud, fell for it without suspecting a thing. Before I left that afternoon, I hugged Leo. He was sitting in his chair by the window, looking at the sea in the distance. I put my hands on his shoulders and said, "You are going to get through this. Son, I promise you." He turned to look at me. His eyes were red. He grabbed my hand and whispered, "Forgive me, Dad. Forgive me for being a burden." I felt my chest tear open. I knelt in front of him, looked him in the eye, and said with a firm voice, "Never say that again. Never. You are not a burden. You are my son, and I will take care of you until my last breath." We hugged. I cried on his shoulder, and he cried too, or so it seemed, because now I know those tears were as fake as everything else. Martha was waiting for me outside, leaning on the truck. When I came out, she looked at me with that face she always made, when she knew something I did not want to hear. "Oliver, that nurse, he is too young. Do you not think it is weird that someone so young has so much experience?" I got angry. "Martha, please, my son is in there, destroyed, and you are here looking for weird things where there are none." She said no more. She got in the truck in silence, and I drove back to Dallas with a heavy heart, but also with the peace of mind of knowing I had left Leo in good hands. Or so I thought, because the truth is, I had left him in the hands of wolves, and I had just put the meat in their mouths. I went back to my life in Dallas, but it was not the same. Every morning I got up at 5, went to the company, reviewed orders, closed contracts, supervised job sites, but my mind was in Seaside Bay. Every time the phone rang, my heart raced, thinking it was an emergency. Every night before sleeping, I sent Leo a text, "How are you, son?" And he always replied the same, "Here, Dad, fighting, two damn words that broke my heart, and I kept transferring the money. Religiously, every first of the month, $9,500 a month, without fail, without complaining, because he was my son, and a father does whatever it takes. I could not visit him every week. My company needed me. I had employees who depended on me, million-dollar contracts to close, meetings I could not cancel, so I visited Leo every 2 weeks. But I always warned him first. Always. I would send him a text on Thursday. "Son, I am coming down this Saturday," and he would reply in a weak voice message. "Thanks, Dad. I miss you so much." I thought I was being considerate, that I was giving him time to prepare emotionally for my visit. What an idiot! What I was really giving him was time to set up the show, to turn his party house into a hospital, for his actors to put on their costumes. What I did not know was that every time I sent that text, Leo opened a group chat, a group called Operation Dad, and they were all in it. Valerie, Ben, Andrew, 2 other friends, and Leo would write, "Code Red. Dad arrives Saturday at noon. Valerie, white uniform. Ben, Andrew, get here at 10 a.m. Hide the bottles. Put away the designer clothes. Turn down the colored lights. Invalid mode. On." And they would all reply with emojis, laughs, confirmations, as if it were a game, as if fooling a father whose only wish was to save his son was something fun, something to laugh about. And on Saturday, when I arrived, everything was perfect. I would walk in the door and find Leo in his wheelchair, by the window, looking at the horizon with a sad face. Valerie would be by his side, in her impeccable uniform, taking his blood pressure. Ben would be reviewing some medical papers at the table. There was a heating blanket on Leo's legs, medicine bottles on the side table, a smell of alcohol and disinfectant in the air. It looked like a hospital. It smelled like a hospital. It felt like a hospital. And I would walk in with a bag of fruit, with books, with vitamins, and I would say, "Son, I brought you oranges. They say vitamin C helps." And he would smile weakly. "Thanks, Dad. You did not have to." I would stay for 2 or 3 hours. We would talk. He would tell me how the therapies were going. Ben would chime in with medical terms. "We are working on joint mobility. There is improvement in his reflexes." Valerie would nod. She would show me a notebook with notes that looked real, graphs, schedules, all so professional. I felt hopeful. "See? Son, you are improving." And Leo would shake his head with tears in his eyes. "I do not know. Dad, sometimes I feel like I will never walk again." And I would hug him, tell him not to lose faith, that I would always be there. And inside, I was dying of helplessness, of pain, while they were counting the minutes until I left so they could go back to the party. But there was someone else in Seaside Bay, someone who was not in the group chat. My niece Chloe, Martha's daughter. She was 26 and worked as an accountant for an export company in that city. She had lived there for 2 years, and every time I went to visit Leo, I would tell Martha, and Martha would tell Chloe, "Your uncle is going to see Leo this Saturday. Why do you not stop by and say hello?" And Chloe would stop by. But she always warned him first. She would text Leo, "Cousin, I will be there in an hour." And Leo had time to set up the theater for her too. Chloe would arrive, see her cousin in the chair, hug him, cry with him, and she fell for the lie too. Until one Tuesday, Chloe had a day off. She was bored. She decided to stop by and see her cousin without warning, just to keep him company for a while. She arrived at 3 inches the afternoon. She rang the bell. No one answered, but she heard music inside. Not soft music, reggaeton, loud. She rang again. Nothing. She walked around the house, and through a side window, the one to the kitchen, she saw something that froze her. On the table, there were beer bottles, glasses with ice, an open bag of chips, and laughter, male laughter. Chloe felt something was wrong. She stood there, not knowing what to do. Then she rang the bell insistently, and then the music shut off, abruptly. 2 minutes later, Leo opened the door, in his wheelchair, looking tired. Chloe, what a surprise. Sorry, I was sleeping. She looked at him suspiciously. Sleeping? I heard music. Leo laughed nervously. Oh, yeah. Ben was cleaning and put on some music. He just left. Chloe walked in, looked around. Everything was normal, but something was strange. A glass with ice, still not melted. On the table, a bag of chips that was still crinkling, and on the floor, next to the sofa, she saw something that made her heart race. A red high heel, a woman's heel, elegant, expensive. It was not a nurse's shoe, it was a party shoe. Chloe said nothing. She stayed for half an hour, talked to Leo. Noticed he was nervous, sweating, looking towards the stairs every 2 minutes, as if someone was hiding upstairs. When she said goodbye, she kissed his forehead and said, "Take care, cousin." But as she left, she took out her phone and sent a message to her mother. "Mom, something is not right." I went to Leo's house without warning. There was music, bottles, and a red high heel in the living room. "It is not normal," Martha read the message, and she felt that what she had suspected from the beginning was about to be confirmed. And what Chloe saw that afternoon was the first thread that began to unravel the whole lie. Martha replied, "Do not say anything to your uncle yet. I need proof." And Chloe obeyed. But from that day on, she started passing by Leo's house at random times, without warning, sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon. And what she saw left her speechless. One time, a red BMW parked in the driveway. Another time, she saw Valerie leaving the house, with bags from a luxury store, laughing on the phone. Another time, she heard music and laughter at 11 at night, and every time she noted something, she sent it to Martha, and Martha saved everything, every photo, every message, every detail, waiting for the perfect moment to show her brother, because she knew Oliver would not believe her without proof. And the proof was about to arrive in the most devastating way possible. If you are following this story, leave us a comment telling us which country you are listening from. Sometimes, when I read your messages, I feel like I am not alone in this, and that gives me the strength to go on. 2 weeks after Chloe started watching, I made a decision. It was Thursday morning. I had a meeting canceled. Suddenly, I thought, I am going to see Leo. Without warning. I will surprise him. It was not suspicion. It was love. I wanted to see him, hug him, maybe stay all day with him. I thought it would do him good to see me arrive unannounced, that it would lift his spirits. How wrong I was. I got in my truck. I called Martha. I am heading to Seaside Bay. Want to come? She hesitated, then said, "Yes, I will pick you up in 10 minutes." And something in her voice sounded tense, but I paid it no mind. We drove the 3 hours in silence. I thought about the happy look on Leo's face when he saw me. Martha stared out the window, quiet. We arrived at 11 in the morning, a perfect time. Leo would be awake, maybe having breakfast, maybe in his morning therapy. I parked in front of the house. Martha stayed in the truck. "I need the restroom first," she said. "Wait for me here." I nodded, got out, walked to the door. The sun was strong. There was a strange silence. I rang the bell. Once, twice, nothing. But I heard something inside. Music. Not loud, but I could hear it. And voices. Voices. At 11 in the morning. Who would be there besides the nurses? I rang again. Harder. Absolute silence. The music stopped. And then I heard hurried footsteps, someone running inside the house. I took out my key, the same one Leo had given me. For emergencies. Dad. I put the key in the lock, turned it, the door opened, and the first thing I saw was Leo, standing, in the middle of the living room, standing, with a glass in his hand, looking at me, for 2 seconds. 3, maybe. We just stood there, him standing, me in the doorway. His eyes went wide as saucers. The glass trembled in his hand, and I felt something was wrong. But before I could process what I was seeing, before my brain connected the dots, Leo shouted with an emotion that seemed real. "Dad, you are not going to believe this. 3 steps. I took 3 steps today." He staggered, dramatically, as if he could barely hold his own weight. He dropped the glass, grabbed the back of the sofa. "It was this morning. Dad! In therapy with Ben." Suddenly, I felt my legs, and I could stand up, just 3 steps. But 3 steps. Tears started rolling down his cheeks. And I forgot everything. I forgot the music was on. I forgot he had a glass in his hand, as if he were drinking something. I forgot he had run to open the door. I only saw my son crying, saying he had taken 3 steps. And I ran to him. I hugged him. "Son, it is a miracle. I knew it. I knew you would get better." And he sobbed on my shoulder. "Thanks, Dad. Thanks for never giving up on me." Valerie appeared out of nowhere, in her white uniform, perfectly put together, as if she had been there the whole time. "Mr. Bertram, it is true. This morning, during the exercises, Leo managed to stand up. It was just for a moment, but it is a huge breakthrough." I looked at her, excited. "You saw it? It really happened?" She nodded with that sweet smile. "Yes, I was there. It was beautiful." And I believed her. I believed her because I wanted to believe her, because I needed to believe her. I stayed for 2 hours. Leo went back to his chair, said he was exhausted from the effort, that everything hurt. I made him tea, gave him his medicine, and when I left, I told him, "I will be back soon. Son, this is just the beginning." He smiled weakly. "I love you, Dad." And I left there with a heart full of hope. But Martha had not come in. She was still in the truck. When I got in, she was looking at me with a face I could not decipher. "What happened?" she asked. I smiled. "Martha, Leo took 3 steps. He is getting better." I expected her to be happy, to smile, but she did not. She just said, "Oliver, I saw something." My smile froze. "What did you see?" She pointed to the side window of the house, the kitchen window. "Before you went in, I got out to stretch my legs. I walked over there, and I saw him, Oliver, Leo, standing, not taking 3 steps. Standing, normal, walking from the kitchen to the living room with a glass in his hand, like nothing was ever wrong with him. I felt the air leave my lungs. "No," I said. "No, Martha. There must be an explanation. Maybe. Maybe it was the moment he took those steps. Maybe you saw him right at that instant." She shook her head. "No, Oliver. He was not staggering. He was not struggling. He was walking normally, like you and me. And when he heard you knock, he ran. He ran. Oliver. And when you went in, he was already acting. I felt anger, not at Leo, at her. You are wrong. You are looking for things that are not there. My son is getting better. And you want to ruin it." Martha looked at me sadly. "Fine. Do not believe me. But I know what I saw, and we did not speak the entire way back. I thought, Martha is jealous. She is resentful. But a small part of me, a part I tried to ignore, whispered, and what if she is right? And that question haunted me for days. Martha never believed me. From the first day she saw Leo in that wheelchair, something inside her screamed that something was wrong, but she had no proof. She only had that gut feeling women get when something does not add up, that intuition that men ignore because we think we are more rational, more logical. and we end up falling into traps they see from miles away. Every time I talked about Leo, about his progress, about how brave he was, Martha would look at me with those eyes that said, "I do not believe a word of it." But I shut her down. I made her feel paranoid, and she, out of respect, kept quiet until she could not anymore. A month after Leo became paralyzed, Martha came to my office unannounced. She walked in while I was reviewing some contracts. She sat across from me with that serious face she always wore when she was about to tell me something I did not want to hear. "Oliver, do you not think it is strange that this doctor is so helpful, that he comes to Leo's house at all hours? And that nurse, so pretty, so young, so perfect?" I looked up, annoyed. "Martha, please. My son is destroyed, and you are here inventing conspiracies. What do you want me to do? Leave him without care because the nurse is pretty?" She pressed her lips together, said no more. She got up and left, but in her eyes, I saw something that bothered me. Pity. She looked at me with pity, as if I were a fool who could not see the obvious. Martha watched everything. Every time I told her something about Leo, she took mental notes. "Why does Leo not want to move in with you, Oliver? You said you offered 3 times, and he always says no." I explained patiently. "Because he has his doctors there. He has his routine. He says if he moves in with me, he will lose his independence, that he will feel more like an invalid." Martha raised an eyebrow. "And is it not convenient? That because of that, he needs you to pay for everything there?" I got angry. "Do not be cruel, Martha. My son is not faking paralysis to get money from me. No one would do something like that." And she would fall silent. But I knew she did not believe me. I knew she was waiting for something. Some proof, some mistake from Leo, and that mistake came. Late, but it came. Chloe kept passing by Leo's house without warning. Martha had asked her to keep an eye on him, and she obeyed like a soldier on a mission. One Wednesday at 10 in the morning, she passed by and saw something strange. A delivery truck from a liquor store, unloading boxes of wine and whiskey. The delivery guy rang the bell. Leo opened, walking. No chair, no crutches. He signed the receipt, carried a box inside, and closed the door. Chloe was hiding behind a tree with her phone in her hand. She could not take a picture, because she was too far away. But she saw him. She saw him walk as if he had never been paralyzed. She called Martha, trembling. "Mom, I saw him." He walked. I saw him carry a box of whiskey. Martha took a deep breath. "Are you sure, Chloe?" "Completely." Martha did not tell me anything yet. She knew I would not believe her without solid proof, without photos, without videos, with only Chloe's testimony. I would accuse her of being jealous, of making things up, of trying to destroy my relationship with my son. So she waited. She asked Chloe to keep watching, to take pictures, to write everything down, and Chloe did. She bought a small notebook and started writing. Thursday, 4 p.m. Red BMW parked in front of the house. License plate TGH 421, not Leo's. Saturday, 11 p.m. Loud music. Colored lights in the windows. Male laughter. Monday, 2 p.m. Valerie came out with 4 bags from the Miramar boutique. Expensive clothes. New heels. Smiling on the phone. One afternoon, Chloe went further. She dared to ring the bell when she heard several people inside. She rang. The music stopped immediately. Silence. She waited. 2 minutes later, Leo opened, in his chair, sweating. Chloe, what a surprise. She walked in and saw Ben coming out of the kitchen, buttoning up his white coat in a hurry. She saw Valerie coming downstairs, fixing her hair, and on the table, she saw glasses with half-melted ice, bottles someone had tried to hide, but were still sticking out from behind the sofa. Chloe smiled, acted normal, just stopping by to say hi, cousin. But when she left, her heart was pounding so hard she thought it would explode. And that night she sent everything to Martha. Photos, notes, details, and Martha saved it all in a folder on her computer titled The Truth About Leo. Martha had the gut feeling. Chloe had the evidence. But the worst discovery of all was missing. The one that would make everything explode. The one that would leave no room for doubt, because up to that point, everything was circumstantial. It could be coincidence. It could be misunderstanding. I could defend him by saying maybe he had good days, that maybe the therapy was working, that maybe the bottles belonged to the nurses. But what came next? What Chloe saw next? That had no explanation. That was the definitive proof, the one that would make Leo's entire house of cards collapse, as if it were made of sand. Martha came to my house every Sunday. We drank coffee together. We talked about the company, the family, everything except Leo. Because every time I brought up the subject, she tensed up. One Sunday she said to me, "Oliver, if you ever found out someone you love lied to you, what would you do?" I looked at her, puzzled. "What is that question for?" She took a sip of coffee. "Just curious. Would you forgive?" I thought about it, and I said with certainty, "Depends on the lie. If it is small, maybe. But if it is something big, something that makes me feel like a fool, no, I would not forgive." She nodded slowly, and I saw something in her eyes that unsettled me, as if she already knew something, as if she already had the answer to a question I had not even asked yet. Chloe kept watching, and one Friday night, her company organized an event at the Miramar Hotel in Seaside Bay, an end-of-year dinner for employees. She went in her best dress, smiling, relaxed. After dinner, she went to the restroom, and as she passed the ballroom next door, she heard music, reggaeton, laughter, clinking glasses. She peeked through the cracked open door, and she saw him, Leo, in the middle of the dance floor, dancing with a glass of champagne in his hand. No chair, no crutches, nothing. Moving his hips, laughing, beside him, Valerie in a red dress that clung to her body like a second skin, and beyond them, Ben and Andrew, with drinks in their hands, shouting and celebrating. Chloe felt the floor disappear from under her. Her hands were shaking when she took out her phone, unlocked it, opened the camera, and took pictures. 1, 2, 3, 4, from different angles. In one, you could clearly see Leo's face. In another, Valerie kissing him. In another, Ben raising his glass to Leo. Proof. Irrefutable proof. Chloe put her phone away, ran out of the hotel, got in her car, and drove straight to her apartment. Hands still trembling, she arrived, locked herself in, and called Martha. "Mom, I have it. I have the pictures. Leo was dancing, at a party, with Valerie, with everyone. Mom?" He was never paralyzed. On the other end of the line, Martha closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and said in a firm voice, "Send them to me. Now, it is time for your uncle to know the truth." That night, Martha did not sleep. She stared at the photos on her phone, over and over, zooming in, making sure there was no doubt, and there was not. Leo was there, standing, dancing, laughing, mocking his father without knowing it. Martha felt rage, a rage that burned in her chest, because she had suspected it from the beginning, but no one had believed her. And now she had the proof that would destroy her brother, the proof that would make Oliver never be the same. And even though she knew it would hurt, even though she knew it would shatter him, she also knew it was necessary, because the truth always hurts, but the lie kills slowly, and it was time to end this agony. Saturday morning, I was at home. I had just finished breakfast, reading the newspaper on the patio, with a cup of coffee in my hand. The sun was strong. It was hot. It was one of those days where everything seems calm, where you think life is predictable, that nothing bad can happen. Then I heard the doorbell. I got up, puzzled. I was not expecting anyone. I opened the door, and there was Martha, with a look on her face I had never seen, It was not sadness, it was not anger, it was determination. That look people get when they are about to say something that will change everything. And I knew, before she opened her mouth, that what was coming was not good. "Oliver, I need to talk to you." Her voice was firm, cold. She walked in without being invited, went to the living room, sat on the sofa. I closed the door, confused. "What is it, Martha? Are you okay?" She did not answer. She took her phone out of her bag, unlocked it, and put it on the coffee table. In front of me. "Look." I leaned in. I saw the screen. It was a photo of a party room, colored lights, people dancing. I did not understand. "What is this?" She zoomed in with 2 fingers, and my heart stopped beating. There, in the center of the photo, was Leo, standing, with a glass in his hand, dancing, laughing, and beside him, Valerie, in a red dress, pressed against him, kissing him. The world stopped. I heard nothing. I only saw the photo. I zoomed in more. I saw his face. It was him, no doubt. Leo, my son. The one I thought was in a wheelchair, unable to walk, suffering every day. There he was, dancing like nothing had ever happened. My hands started to shake. I felt something inside me break. It was not pain. It was something worse. It was the feeling that everything you had believed, everything you had loved, was a lie. When is this?" My voice came out hoarse. Martha answered calmly. "Last night. Chloe saw him at a party at the Miramar Hotel. She took several pictures. Oliver, your son was never paralyzed." I swiped to the next photo. Leo raising his glass, toasting, smiling. Another photo, Ben and Andrew, the nurses, with drinks in their hands, shouting something. Another one, Valerie hugging Leo, in heels, with that dress that cost more than a month's salary for one of my workers. It was all real. It was all true. And I had paid for all of it, for that party, for that champagne, for that dress, for that lie. I felt like I could not breathe. I sat down. Martha watched me in silence. She did not say "I told you so." She did not say "I knew it." She just waited. Waited for me to process what I had just seen. And I could not process anything. I just felt a void. A huge, swallowing void. "How long?" I asked, without looking up from the phone. Martha sighed. "Chloe has been watching him for 2 months. She has seen things. Oliver, a lot of things. Bottles, parties, expensive cars. Valerie leaving with bags from luxury stores. All paid for by you. All a sham." I clenched my fists. I felt rage. But it was not explosive rage. It was a cold, calculated rage. The worst kind of rage. The kind that does not shout. The kind that plans. The kind that waits for the exact moment to act. "Why did you not tell me sooner?" Martha looked me in the eye. "Because you would not have believed me. You needed to see this. You needed proof." And she was right. If she had told me anything without photos, I would have accused her of being crazy, of making it up, of trying to separate us. I stood up, walked to the window, looked outside. The street was empty. Everything was the same. But for me, nothing would ever be the same. Never. I stood there, in silence, for what felt like hours. But it was only 5 minutes. 5 minutes, in which my brain replayed every visit, every tear from Leo, every dollar I had transferred, every word he had told me. It was all a lie. Every hug, every thanks, Dad, every "I love you," all of it. Fake. I felt like I was choking, that the air was not entering my lungs. Martha was still sitting there, watching me, waiting, and then I broke the silence. "Call Arthur Reyes." Martha blinked, surprised. "Arthur Reyes? The investigator?" I nodded, without turning to look at her. "Yes. Call him. Tell him I need to see him today. Now. Martha took out her phone, dialed, spoke in a low voice. Arthur, it is Martha Bertram. My brother Oliver needs to talk to you. It is urgent. Can you come to his house? Pause. Yes, now. She hung up, looked at me. He says he will be here in half an hour. I kept staring out the window, thinking, planning, because if Leo thought he could fool me like this, if he thought I would just sit back, he was very mistaken. I was not the type to shout. I was not the type to make a scene, but I was the type to act. And when I acted well. Arthur Reyes was the best private investigator in the region. I had known him for 30 years. We had worked together when he was a cop, and I needed to investigate some suppliers who were stealing from me. Then he quit the force, set up his agency, and since then, I called him whenever I needed information I could not get through other means. He was discreet, efficient, relentless. If you asked him to investigate someone, he brought you everything, even what you did not want to know. And that was exactly what I needed. I needed to know everything, every detail, every lie, every accomplice, every dollar Leo had spent of my money, everything, because I was going to destroy him. Not with shouts, with proof. Half an hour later, Arthur knocked on the door. He was a man of 55, tall, thin, graying at the temples, with gray eyes that seemed to see right through people. He always wore a dark suit. He never smiled. He came in, nodded at Martha, then looked at me. Oliver, what do you need? He did not waste time on courtesies. I liked that about him. I showed him the photos, handed them to him one by one. He observed them in silence, expressionless. When he finished, he looked up. Your son. It was not a question, it was a statement. I nodded. I want you to investigate him. Everything. Who he is with, what he does, where he goes, how much he spends, who his accomplices are. I want every detail. I do not care about the cost. Arthur put the phone in his pocket. How much time do I have? I looked him in the eye. 2 weeks. I need to know everything in 2 weeks. He nodded. You will have it. He stood up, headed for the door. Before leaving, he turned. Oliver, if what you suspect is true, what I am going to find will hurt you. Are you sure you want to know? I did not hesitate. I am sure. I want the truth, the whole truth, even if it destroys me. Arthur nodded slowly. Understood. And he left. The door closed. And I stayed there, standing, feeling like I had just declared a war against my own son. But there was no turning back. Arthur Reyes was the best private investigator in the region, and he was also the only man I trusted to do what was coming. Martha stayed with me the rest of the day. We did not talk much. We just sat in the living room, in silence, each lost in our own thoughts. I replayed mentally every visit to Seaside Bay, every tear from Leo, every time he told me, "Thanks, Dad," while I transferred him money, and now it all made sense. The excuses not to move in with me, the always scheduled visits, the too pretty nurse, the too young therapist, it was all part of the plan, and I had fallen for it like an idiot. But not anymore, because now I knew the truth, and the truth, even though it hurt, had freed me from the trap. Now there was only one thing left, for Leo to know that I knew, and that day would come soon, very soon. Arthur had told me he needed 2 weeks, 2 weeks to investigate everything, to follow him, to get proof, 2 weeks that felt eternal. But before those 2 weeks began, before Arthur started his work, I needed to do something. I needed to go somewhere I always found peace, where I always found answers. The next day, very early, I told Martha I needed to be alone. She understood. I got in my truck and drove to St. Michael's Cemetery. There, under a jacaranda tree that blooms every April, Teresa is buried. I arrived at dawn. The cemetery was empty. Just me, the dead, and the questions burning inside me. I knelt in front of her headstone. There were dried flowers someone had left weeks ago. I removed them carefully. put down the white roses I had bought on the way, and then I spoke, as if she could hear me, as if she were still there, sitting next to me, like in the early mornings when we could not sleep, and we talked about everything. Teresa, forgive me for taking so long to come. I know I have been absent. I know I do not come as often as I should, but it is just. It hurts to see you here. It hurts to know you are gone. My voice broke. I took a deep breath. The cold morning air burned my lungs. I have to tell you something. Something about Leo. Something that you maybe already knew. The words came out like a river that had been held back too long. The photos I saw. My love. Leo was never paralyzed. It was a lie. Everything was a lie. He robbed me. He deceived me. And I believed him. I fell for his trap like an idiot. The tears started to fall. I did not try to stop them. You know the worst part? That while I was crying for him, while I was waking up in the middle of the night, worried, wondering if he was suffering, he was laughing at me, while I transferred him money thinking I was saving him. He spent it on parties, on luxuries, on women, on mockery. I hit the grass with my fist. I felt the pain in my knuckles, but it was a lesser pain compared to the one in my chest. How could I be so blind, Teresa? How did I not see what you saw? And then I remembered. Like a lightning bolt illuminating the darkness, I remembered something I had buried in my mind, because it hurt too much. 2 weeks before Teresa died, she came to my office. It was late, around 9 at night. I was reviewing contracts. She walked in without knocking. She looked tired, worried. She sat across from me without saying anything for a moment. Then, Oliver, I need to talk to you about Leo. I looked up, annoyed that she was interrupting me. What is it? She hesitated, fidgeted with her hands. He asked me for money again. $30,000. He says it is for an import business with a friend. Something about electronics. But, Oliver, something in his eyes. I did not like it. When I asked for details, he got nervous, changed the subject, and then he left quickly. I sighed, annoyed. I dropped the papers on the desk with more force than necessary. Teresa, it is normal for him to ask for money. He is finding his way. He is trying to grow. Let's give him a chance. Or do you want him to be stuck all his life? She shook her head slowly. I did not give it to him. Oliver. I told him no. I got angry. Really angry. What do you mean you did not give it to him? He is our son. If he is asking for money, it is because he needs it. She looked at me with those sad eyes that I now understand. Something tells me he is not telling the truth. Something in my heart tells me he is lying to us. And I said horrible things to her. You always think the worst of him. You always look for reasons to distrust. You are his mother, Teresa. You should support him, not destroy him with your suspicions. She just looked at me, sadly, with a sadness so deep that it breaks my heart to remember it now. I hope I am wrong. Oliver, I really hope so. And she stood up, left the office, closed the door gently, and we never spoke of it again, ever. A week later, she had the heart attack, died while making breakfast, collapsed in the kitchen, and I never apologized for those words. I never told her, you were right, my love, forgive me. And now, kneeling in front of her grave, with the photos of Leo dancing still burning in my pocket, I understood everything. You were right, Teresa. You were always right. And I did not listen to you. I treated you badly. I made you feel like you were crazy. Forgive me, my love. Forgive me for not seeing you were right, for defending the indefensible, for being so blind, for choosing him over you when you were the only one telling the truth. I cried. I cried like I had not cried since the day of her funeral. I cried until I had no tears left, and when I finally stood up, when I finally wiped my face on my sleeve, I knew I had to go home. I had to find something. Something Teresa had left. something I had never had the courage to open. I drove back, my heart racing. I entered the house, went straight to our room, the room we shared for 42 years, which is now empty without her, which smells like memories and pain. I opened her closet. Her clothes still hung there. I have not been able to remove them. I cannot. They still smell like her perfume. And on the top shelf, behind some shoeboxes, I saw what I was looking for, a small wooden box. With a lock, I took it down. My hands were shaking. It was heavy. I looked for the key. I found it in her jewelry box, hanging on a silver chain, along with a folded note. I opened it. I recognized her handwriting immediately. For Oliver, when you are ready to hear what I could never say out loud, I love you, Teresa. My heart sped up. My hands were sweating. I opened the box with the key. Inside, there was a diary, brown leather, worn by the years, with her handwriting on the cover, thoughts I never said out loud. I took it out. I held it in my hands as if it were the most fragile thing in the world, because it was. It was the last thing I had left of her, her thoughts, her voice, her truth. I opened the first page, and I began to read. The first pages made me smile through my tears. They were about us, about how we met at that town fair, about our first date, about our wedding, about the day Leo was born. Leo was born today. He is perfect. He has Oliver's eyes and my nose. When I held him, I felt like my life finally had meaning. I will protect this child with my life. Beautiful words. Words full of love. But then, as I moved through the pages, the entries changed. They became darker, more worried. Leo is 15, and he already lies with an ease that scares me. Today he told me he was at the library studying. I saw him at the mall with his friends. When I asked him, he invented another story without blinking, without guilt, without remorse. I kept reading, page after page of worries Teresa never told me, of small lies she detected and I ignored. Leo asked me for money for school books. I gave him $20. I found the books in his room, unopened, with the price tag still on. When I asked about the money, he said he used it for transportation. But his friend told me Leo has a new car. I do not know where he got it. I am scared. Scared that my son is becoming someone I do not recognize. Oliver does not see it, or does not want to see it. Every time I try to talk to him about Leo, he gets angry, says I am paranoid, that I see things that are not there, but I know what I see, and it terrifies me. Tears fell on the pages, staining the ink, but I could not stop reading. And then I reached the last entry, dated exactly 3 days before her death. The handwriting was shaky, as if she had written in fear, in a hurry. Today Leo asked me for $30,000. He looked me in the eyes and lied to me. I know it. I feel it in my bones. I feel it in my mother's soul. Oliver got angry with me when I told him. He said horrible things to me, that I do not trust our son, that I always look for the bad. And maybe he is right, maybe I am crazy, but I have to write this because if I do not, I will suffocate. I am afraid Leo will become what I fear most. A man who wants everything without giving anything. A man who uses the people who love him. A man without dignity. Like the father my Leo never knew. God, please let me be wrong. Please, because if I am right, then I have failed as a mother. I closed the diary. I hugged it to my chest, and I understood everything. Teresa knew. She always knew. She died with that fear, with that guilt, thinking she had failed, and I made her feel that way. I silenced her. I ignored her, and now I had to do what she could not, put a stop to it, not out of rage, out of dignity, for her, for me, for the memory of the only person who always told the truth. I had known Arthur Reyes for 30 years, when I was building my company, just starting out. I had problems with suppliers stealing materials. I needed proof to sue them. Arthur was a cop back then, an honest cop, one of the few left. I hired him privately. He got me everything, photos, videos, documents. Thanks to him, I got my money back, and I put 3 guys in jail. Since then, whenever I needed information I could not get through normal means, I called Arthur. He had retired from the force at 45, opened his private investigation agency, and became the best, the most discreet, the most lethal. Because Arthur did not bring you assumptions, he brought you truths, truths that hurt, but truths nonetheless. I gave him 2 weeks. I want to know everything. Arthur, who my son is with, what he does every day, where he goes, how much he spends, who his friends are, who this woman claiming to be a nurse is, who these guys claiming to be therapists are. I want bank records. I want photos. I want videos. I do not care how you get it. I do not care about the cost. Just bring me the truth. Arthur took out a notebook, wrote everything down, looked at me with those gray eyes that never showed emotion. Are you prepared for what I am going to find? I clenched my jaw. I am prepared for anything. He nodded. Give me 15 days. I will bring you a full report. And he left my house like a shadow, silent, lethal, unstoppable. During those 15 days, I continued my normal life. I went to the office, reviewed contracts, supervised job sites, but inside, I was dying. Every night, before sleeping, I stared at the ceiling and thought about Leo, about all the times I had hugged him, all the times I had told him, "You are going to get through this." And I wondered, when did he start lying? From day one? Or was there a moment when he actually considered telling me the truth? I did not know, and maybe I never would. But what I did know was that there was no turning back. I could not pretend I had not seen the photos. I could not keep paying for his lie. This was ending, one way or another. Leo called me twice that week. The first time, to tell me he had a slight improvement in his legs. "Dad, the doctor says maybe with an experimental surgery, I could get some mobility back, but it costs $30,000. I felt my blood boil. $30,000 for another lie, for another sham. But I said nothing. I just replied, "Let me think about it. Son, that is a lot of money. I need to check the finances," he insisted. "But Dad, it is my only chance." I cut him off. "I will call you later." And I hung up. Martha, who was with me, looked at me. "Are you going to give him the money?" I shook my head. "Not one more dollar. Not one. It is over." And I said it with a coldness I did not even recognize in my own voice. The second call was worse. Leo was crying, said he felt alone, that he missed his mother, that sometimes he thought it would have been better to die in the accident. And I wanted to scream at him. I wanted to tell him I knew everything, that I had found him out, that he was a damn liar. But I held back, because Arthur had not delivered the report yet. And I needed everything, every detail, every piece of proof, so that when I confronted him, he would have no way to escape. So I told him what he expected to hear. "Do not say that. Son, I will visit you soon. Hold on a little longer." And he, with a broken voice, replied, "Thanks, Dad. I love you." And I did not reply. I just hung up, because I could not say, "I love you too." I did not know it was all a lie. On the 14th day, Arthur arrived at my house. He brought a thick, brown folder. I sat across from him at my desk. Martha was there too. Arthur opened the folder slowly. "Oliver, what I am about to show you is going to hurt. But you asked for the truth, and here it is." He took out photos, many photos. Leo entering expensive restaurants. Leo at a shopping mall, carrying bags from luxury stores. Leo on a yacht, with a beer in his hand, surrounded by friends. Leo kissing Valerie in a parking lot. All the photos were recent, from the last week. My paralyzed son, living like a millionaire. With my money. I felt something inside me die forever, Arthur continued. He took out a document. Valerie Santander, 32 years old, not a nurse. She is a freelance model. Has an Instagram profile with 20,000 followers. Met Leo 2 years ago at a bar. They've been dating ever since. She knows about the sham. She is an accomplice. Then he took out more papers. Ben Aguirre and Andrew Molina. Friends of Leo's from college. Never studied medicine. Ben is a graphic designer. Andrew works at an advertising agency. Leo pays them $500 each time you announce you are visiting. They show up, dress as nurses, and play their part. And when you leave, they leave too. I felt sick. Everything. Everything was an act. Every person I thought was caring for my son was a paid actor. But the worst was yet to come. Arthur took out an envelope, bank records, of the $9,500 a month you transfer him. Leo spends an average of $7,000 on parties, restaurants, clothes, weekend trips to Cabo and Miami. The rest he splits between Valerie, Ben, Andrew, and Dr. Raymond Estrada. He opened another document. Speaking of Dr. Estrada, he is a real doctor. Yes, but he has 3 malpractice suits and 1 for document forgery. He sells fake medical reports for $5,000. Leo paid him exactly that amount the day he got out of the hospital. I have the receipt. My world collapsed. Every piece fit. Every lie had its price, and I had paid for all of it. Then Arthur took out his tablet. There is something else you need to see. He touched the screen. A video started playing. It was Leo, on a beach, Cabo, the location said. He was drunk, very drunk, dancing without a shirt, with a beer in each hand, shouting something. Arthur turned up the volume, and I heard the words that destroyed me. My old man is an idiot. I told him I cannot walk, and he sends me $9,500 a month. It is the best business of my life. The fool fell for it completely. His friends laughed, shouted. Leo raised his beers. To gullible fathers, to those who believe any lie. And they all toasted. Arthur stopped the video, looked at me. I could not speak. I felt something inside me break in a way that would never be fixed. There is more, Arthur said. He took out photos. Many photos. 3 months ago, Leo threw a party, a theme party. He showed me the first photo. It was a digital invitation, it said. Celebrate with me! 1 year in the chair! Anniversary party. Dress code. Hospitals and doctors. I felt like I could not breathe. Arthur swiped to the next photo. A cake. A damn giant cake, in the shape of a wheelchair. With sugar letters that said, 1 year faking and counting. The next photo showed Leo, standing, cutting the cake, surrounded by 80 people, all dressed as doctors. Nurses, patients, all laughing, all toasting. He spent $20,000 on that party, Arthur said. Rented a whole ballroom, live band, open bar, all paid for with your money. And they all knew. The 80 people who attended knew it was a sham. They all laughed. At you. I closed my eyes. I wanted to scream. But nothing came out. There was only silence. A silence that hurt more than any scream. Arthur was not finished. He took out a printed sheet, a screenshot. I got this from a contact in cyber police. Leo's Google search history. 1 month before your wife's death, I read. And I felt my heart stop, the searches said. How to fake paralysis. Symptoms of spinal cord injury. How much does a fake medical report cost? Hire actors to play nurses. How much money to live without working? It was all there. Black and white. Leo did not improvise. It was not something that occurred to him after the accident. It was planned, coldly, calculated, a month before my wife died. While she was dying, while I was crying, he was planning how to rob me, and I did not know whether to laugh or cry, because the son I thought I knew never existed. Arthur closed the folder, looked at me. What are you going to do? I did not answer right away. I just sat there, staring at the closed folder, feeling the weight of the world fall on my shoulders. A tear rolled down my cheek. Just one. I made no sound. I did not sob. I just let it fall. Martha put her hand on my shoulder, and then I wiped the tear with the back of my hand. I stood up and said with a voice that did not sound like mine, I am going to see him, but this time, without warning. Arthur nodded slowly. Do you want me to go with you? I thought about it, and said, Yes, but you stay in the car. I am doing this alone, and that decision, that surprise visit, would be the end of Leo's empire of lies. We left that same afternoon. A Saturday I drove. Arthur was in the passenger seat. We did not talk the entire trip. 3 hours of silence. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I thought about what I was going to say, what I was going to do, but every time I tried to plan something, my mind went blank. Why were there no words for this? There was no prepared speech to tell your son you know he deceived you in the worst way possible, that he robbed you, that he lied to you, that he laughed at you while you cried for him. There were no words. There was only rage, a cold rage burning inside me. And when we got to Seaside Bay, when I parked 2 blocks from his house and saw the lights on, I knew nothing would ever be the same. It was 10 at night, the street was dark. Arthur and I sat in the truck, watching Leo's house from a distance. There were lights on in every window, and music, not soft music, reggaeton, loud, so loud we could hear it from where we were. Arthur looked at me. Are you ready? I took a deep breath. I nodded. Stay here. If I am not out in 30 minutes, come in. He said nothing, just nodded. I opened the truck door, got out, closed it softly, and started walking towards the house. Every step I took felt like I was walking towards a cliff, but I did not stop, because there was no turning back. As I got closer, I heard laughter, lots of laughter. Men, women, people celebrating. I reached the door, put my hand on the knob, took a deep breath. I put the key in the lock. The same key Leo had given me when he moved. For emergencies. Dad, he had said. What irony. I turned the key. The lock clicked open. I pushed the door. It opened without a sound. And what I saw on the other side, what I saw took my breath away. Not from surprise, because I already expected it, but because seeing it with my own eyes was 1,000 times worse than any photo. It was real, tangible, unforgivable. The living room was full of people, 8, maybe 10. There were open bottles of whiskey on the table, bottles that cost $120 each. There were 3 open, glasses with ice, limes, Japanese food in cardboard boxes, sushi, sashimi. The food Leo could not eat, because his delicate stomach could not handle raw things. Colored lights flashed in the corners. Red, blue, green, like a club. The music pounded the walls, and in the center of it all, Leo, my son, standing, dancing, moving his hips, with a glass of champagne in his hand, laughing, happy, free, as if he had never known a wheelchair, as if the last 8 months had not existed. Beside him was Valerie, in a black dress that clung to her body, high heels, hair down, perfect makeup, nothing like the nurse in the white uniform I knew. She pressed against Leo, hugged him by the waist, whispered something in his ear. He laughed, kissed her on the neck, and beyond them, Ben and Andrew, shirts unbuttoned, drinks in hand, shouting something I could not hear over the music. There were 2 other couples I did not know, all young, all laughing, all enjoying a party paid for with my money, with my pain, with my stupidity, and I just stood there, in the doorway, watching it all, feeling how every second that passed was like a knife sinking deeper. Then someone shouted something. A tall guy, with a beard, raised his glass to Leo. To Leo, the best actor in the world, the only one who could fool his old man for 8 months. And they all burst out laughing, all of them, Leo too. He laughed, raised his glass. Cheers! And they toasted. The glasses clinked. The music kept playing. And me? I felt something inside me break. But it was not sadness. It was something darker. Something I had never felt. It was the exact moment that love turns into something else, into something cold, into something that no longer forgives, into something that only wants justice, and that something took control of me. Valerie was the first to see me. She was facing the door. She looked up, and her eyes met mine. For a second, she did not react, as if her brain could not process what she was seeing. Then her eyes went wide as saucers. Her mouth, too. She let out a choked scream, a scream that cut the air like breaking glass. The music was still playing, but that scream was enough. Everyone turned to her, then followed her gaze. And they saw me, standing in the doorway, with my wrinkled shirt, with my shoes dusty from the road, with my face that showed no surprise. Because there was no surprise. There was only certainty. And that certainty was the most terrifying thing of all. Someone ran to the sound system. The music stopped. The silence that followed was so heavy you could feel it in the air. No one moved. No one breathed. It was as if everyone had frozen. And then Leo, who had his back to me, turned his head slowly, very slowly, like in a horror movie. His profile was silhouetted against the colored lights, and when he saw me, when our eyes met, I saw something I will never forget. I saw panic, pure panic. The panic of someone who just realized it is all over, that the lie is finished, that the game is lost, and that now comes the punishment. The glass in his hand started to shake. It shook so much that the champagne spilled over the edges. Leo tried to say something. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out, just a choked sound. He tried to take a step towards me, but his legs did not respond. Not because he was paralyzed, but because fear had paralyzed him. And then the glass fell. It slipped from his fingers. It fell in slow motion, and it shattered on the marble floor with a sound that echoed through the whole house. Crash. Glass everywhere. Spilled champagne, forming a puddle, and that sound was like a signal. Because after that, no one moved again. It was just Leo and me, looking at each other. In a silence that screamed louder than any word, I took one step forward. Just one. Slow. Deliberate. And I saw how everyone backed away, as if I were dangerous, as if I was emitting something scary. Valerie pressed against the wall. Ben and Andrew looked down. The other people hid behind the sofa. They all knew. They knew something bad was going to happen. But no one was leaving. Because they wanted to see. They wanted to witness the moment it all exploded. And I stopped 2 meters from Leo. I looked him up and down. His legs, perfect. No atrophy. No scars. Nothing. His arms, strong. Healthy. His face, there was no pain. No suffering. There was only fear. Fear of losing everything he had gained with his lie. "Dad," he whispered. His voice came out broken, trembling. He tried to smile, but the smile came out twisted, fake, desperate. And then he said something that made me want to hit him. Something so pathetic, so badly acted, that it was like a final insult. "It is a miracle." "Dad, it is a miracle! I was just about to call you today. You are not going to believe it. I was able to stand up this morning. In therapy." "The doctor says it was a miracle. I am cured." And he took a step towards me, stumbling dramatically, as if he could barely keep his balance. "It is incredible. Dodd, after so much time. I can finally walk." And he held out his arms, waiting for me to hug him, waiting for me to believe him. One more time. But I did not move. I said nothing. I just looked at him, with a look that said everything. A look that said, "I know everything." And in that second, before Leo could keep talking, before he could invent another lie, I knew that everything Arthur had told me was not enough. The reality was worse. Because it is one thing to read a report, to see photos, hear recordings. But it is another thing to be there, standing in front of the lie, watching your son act until the very last second, trying to save himself with another farce. And that showed me that Leo was beyond saving, that there was no remorse, that if I had not arrived that night, he would have continued, for months, for years, until he had bled me dry of every last drop, And that was what gave me the strength to do what came next. To end this, once and for all. Leo was still standing there, arms outstretched, waiting for me to hug him, waiting for me to fall for his lie one more time. Tears were starting to form in his eyes, tears he had perfected over 8 months, tears he knew exactly when to release for maximum effect. Dad, please, believe me, it was this morning, in therapy. Suddenly, I felt something in my legs, and I could stand up. The doctor says it is a miracle. I was going to call you first thing tomorrow to give you the news. His voice trembled, his hands too, but I knew that tremor. It was not emotion, it was fear. Fear of losing everything, of his house of cards collapsing, and it was already collapsing. Valerie reacted. She took a step forward, in her black dress and heels. She tried to put on a concerned nurse face. Mr. Bertram, it is true. I was with him this morning when I raised my hand, a sharp, firm gesture, like when you stop an employee who is about to say something stupid in an important meeting. She stopped mid-sentence, her mouth open, her eyes wide, and she backed away, because she saw something in my eyes, something that told her there was no going back, that the game was over, and that she was on the list too. Ben and Andrew had hidden behind the sofa, cowards. The other guests started gathering their things, trying to leave without making a sound. Rats leaving a sinking ship. I walked slowly through the room. My shoes crunched on the pieces of glass from the broken goblet. I looked at everything around me, the bottles of whiskey on the table. Johnny Walker Blue Label. $120 a bottle. There were 3 open. The Japanese food. From the most expensive restaurant in Seaside Bay, $80 per person. The plates still full. Wasted. On the sofa. Shopping bags. Louis Vuitton. Gucci. Versace. Clothes that cost more than the monthly salary of my employees. The sound system. Bose. Latest model. $1,500. All paid for with my money. With my pain. With my stupidity. And I felt the rage rise in my throat like boiling lava. I turned to look at Leo. He looked at me with those eyes that used to melt me, those eyes that made me want to protect him from the world. But now I only saw a stranger, someone I never really knew. Do not bother. Leo. My voice came out low, very low, but sharp as a knife. I already know everything. The silence that followed was absolute. Leo blinked. Once. Twice. As if he had not understood. What? What are you saying, Dad? His voice came out high, nervous. I took another step closer. I said, I know everything, every detail, every lie, every dollar you stole, and I watched the mask begin to fall, slowly, like paint peeling from a rotten wall. I know about the parties, the trips to Cabo and Miami every weekend, the fake invoices from Dr. Raymond Estrada. I know Valerie is not a nurse. She is your girlfriend. A freelance model. I know Ben and Andrew are not therapists. They are your friends from college. You pay them $500 every time I come to play their part. With every word, I watched Leo shrink, like a balloon losing air. His face went from surprise to panic, from panic to desperation. He tried to speak. Dad, But I continued. I know you never had an accident, that there was never a flipped car, that you were never in the hospital, that it was all staged from day one. And then I took the envelope out of my jacket pocket. I took it out slowly, calmly, like someone drawing a weapon, and I threw it on the table. The envelope landed between the bottles and the food. It opened, and photos spilled out. Lots of photos. Leo on a yacht. Leo entering expensive restaurants. Leo carrying luxury store bags. Leo kissing Valerie in a parking lot. Documents. Bank statements. Receipts. Printed Google searches. Everything. Absolutely everything. I know you planned this a month before your mother died. My voice was shaking now. Not from fear, from contained rage. You Googled how to fake paralysis. You bought fake medical reports. You hired actors, all while your mother was dying, while I was crying at the hospital. You, you were planning how to rob me. Leo staggered. Literally, as if my words were physical blows. Dad, I, I can explain. His voice was a choked whisper, a pathetic attempt to save himself. But I had no more patience. I had no more compassion. And then I shouted. For the first time all night, I shouted. Explain what? Leo? Explain what? My voice echoed through the house. Valerie jumped in fright. Ben and Andrew cringed more. Are you going to explain how? While I was crying at your mother's grave. You were designing how to rob me. Are you going to explain how? While I thought I was saving you. You were laughing at me with your friends? Are you going to explain how you toasted to yourself for being the best actor? For fooling your old man? Every question was a whip. And Leo could only hang his head. The silence that followed was sepulchral. No one breathed. No one moved. It was as if time had stopped. And then I reached into my other pocket. I took out the house keys. The same keys he had given me 8 months ago. For emergencies. Dad, he had said. I held them up in front of him. They shined under the colored lights. And then I dropped them on the table. They landed with a metallic, final, definitive sound. If you faked not being able to walk so you would not have to work. Now you are going to learn to run. Leo. My voice was low again. Cold. Lethal. Because tomorrow at 8 in the morning, this house stops being yours. The accounts are frozen. The contracts with Dr. Estrada, canceled. Every dollar I paid you these 8 months. It is over. Leo looked up. His eyes were red. But I did not know if they were real tears or acted, and frankly, I did not care. Dad, please, give me a chance. I can change. I can. The hug I gave felt lighter, as if I was leaving behind a weight I had been carrying for months. Then I heard his voice, shouting, desperate, Dad, please, do not leave me. I am sorry. I am so sorry. But I did not stop, because I had heard enough lies. I did not need to hear one more. I reached the door, put my hand on the knob, and then, without turning, without looking at him, I said the last words I would say to my son for a long time. Your mother died believing you were a man, believing you were good, that you were honest. Thank God she never knew you were a fraud. And I felt those words destroy him. I heard a sob, a real sob this time, a sob that sounded like defeat, like shame, like guilt. But it was too late, far too late. I opened the door, walked out, and closed it behind me. The sound of the door closing was like the final period on a story that should never have been written. But now, at least, it was over. Arthur was still in the truck. He saw me come out, started the engine. I got in without saying a word. We drove away from there. And as we drove back to Dallas, my phone started ringing. Once, twice, 10 times. I looked at the screen. It was Leo. I declined the call. It rang again. Declined. It rang again, and again, and again. That night, Leo called 47 times, left voicemails, text messages, begging, pleading, promising he would change, that he would pay me back every dollar, that he would do anything, but I never answered. Not that night, not the following nights, not ever, because some things, once broken, cannot be repaired. And my relationship with Leo was more than broken. It was dead. I got to Dallas at dawn. The sky was starting to turn orange, but I did not enjoy it. I went straight to my lawyer's office. I called him from the road. I need you now. Emergency. He was waiting for me with fresh coffee and a worried face. I told him everything. I showed him the photos, the documents, the bank statements. His face went from astonishment to anger. Son of a bitch, he muttered. And I nodded. I need you to freeze all accounts in Leo's name, cancel all contracts, evict him from the house, and recover every dollar you can. He got to work immediately. He called banks, judges, notaries. By 7 in the morning, everything was done. Accounts frozen, contracts canceled. The eviction order signed, At 8 o'clock sharp, an officer served the papers at Leo's house in Seaside Bay. Leo tried to call me again. This time he left a crying voicemail, saying he had nowhere to go, that he had no money, that he needed me. I deleted the message without listening to it all. Martha was with me. She looked at me. "Are you okay?" I nodded, and for the first time in 8 months, it was true. I was okay, because the weight I had been carrying, the weight of the lie, the worry, the guilt, was gone. It was not my problem anymore. Leo had chosen his path. Now he would have to live with the consequences. The following weeks were a whirlwind. Leo tried everything. He sent messages from unknown numbers. He came to the company. But the guards had strict orders. "Mr. Bertram is not available for Mr. Leo." They saw him cry at the door, shout that he was his son, but no one let him in. He tried to talk to Martha. She hung up on him. "I have nothing to say to you, Leo. What you did to your father is unforgivable." He tried Chloe. She did not even answer. Leo was alone, completely alone, and that loneliness was exactly what he deserved. Because when you deceive everyone, when you use everyone, in the end, you have no one left. A month later, Arthur came to see me. "I have news about Leo." I looked at him. Part of me did not want to know, but another part, the part that still remembered the boy he once was, needed to hear. He had to sell everything. The car, the furniture, the designer clothes, everything. Valerie left him. Apparently, she was only with him for the money. What a surprise. Arthur smiled ironically. Ben and Andrew do not talk to him anymore. Dr. Estrada disappeared. Leo is living in a one-bedroom apartment in the industrial zone, and he is working. I looked up. "Working?" Arthur nodded. "As a salesman in an appliance store, 8 hours a day, earning $700 a month." Arthur opened his folder again. "There is more you should know about the accomplices." I leaned back in my chair. "Tell me." He took out some documents. "Remember I told you I would present all the evidence to the police? I did. Dr. Raymond Estrada was arrested 2 weeks ago. Forgery of documents. Fraud. 3 years in prison. He is already in the Seaside Bay jail awaiting sentencing." I felt a dark satisfaction. "And Valerie?" Arthur smiled ironically. "She arrived in Miami 3 days after you cut off the money. Apparently, she already has a new boyfriend. Rich, of course. Posted pictures on Instagram with him. A 60-year-old businessman. She does not waste time." I laughed humorlessly. "And Ben and Andrew?" Arthur closed the folder. "This is the best part. Leo is suing them. Yes, he is blaming them for everything. Says they forced him to lie. That they blackmailed him. They are fighting in court, spending what little they have on lawyers. Justice has funny ways of arriving." I felt something when I heard that. But it was not pity. It was satisfaction. A quiet satisfaction. Because Leo was finally learning what I had tried to teach him all his life. That nothing is given. That everything has a cost. That money is earned with the sweat of your brow. And that lying, stealing, deceiving only leads you to one place. To misery. Not financial misery. That is temporary. The misery of the soul. That is permanent. Anything else? I asked Arthur. He shook his head. That is all. Do you want me to keep watching him? I thought about it. And I said, no, I do not care what he does anymore. My son died a month ago. The one left is a stranger. Martha came to see me on a Sunday. We had coffee on the patio. Like always. There was something different about me, and she noticed. You look better, she said. I smiled. I feel better. She took a sip of coffee. Do you have any regrets? The question was direct. Like everything about Martha, I thought about it. I really thought about it, and I answered honestly. For believing him for so long? Yes. I regret not seeing the signs, not listening to you when you told me something was wrong. That is what I regret. I paused. But for cutting him off, for taking everything away from him, I do not regret that, not for a second. It was the right thing to do. Martha nodded. Your mother taught me something. Oliver. she said. Blood connects you, but dignity defines you, and you chose your dignity. Chloe came to see me, too. One afternoon, after work, she came into the office with a worried look. Uncle, how are you? I put down the papers I was reviewing. I am fine. Chloe. Really? She sat down. I know it hurts, but you did the right thing. I smiled. For the first time in months, a real smile. Your mother taught me that blood is not worth more than dignity. And it is true. Leo is my blood, but what he did, that was against my dignity, against everything I believe in, and a man without dignity is not a man. He is a ghost. Chloe hugged me. I admire you, Uncle. Not many would have the courage to do what you did, and I felt that, for the first time. I had made the right decision. Every morning when I wake up, the first thing I do is go to the kitchen. I make coffee, sit at the table, and look at the picture of Teresa I have in the dining room. It is a photo from 10 years ago. She is smiling, in that blue dress she loves so much, and I talk to her as if she were there. Hello, my love. You know, today is a good day, and I repeat the phrase that Leo never wanted to learn, the phrase that now lives in me like a mantra, like a universal truth. He who lies for comfort ends up disabled in dignity. And I feel that Teresa would be proud that I did not stay silent, that I did not let them keep robbing me, that I defended my dignity. 6 months after the day I opened that door, I received a letter. It came in the mail. The handwriting was Leo's. I recognized it immediately. I held it in my hands for a few minutes, debating whether to open it or not. Martha was with me. Are you going to read it? I nodded. I opened it. Inside were 3 handwritten pages. It began like this. Dad, I know I do not deserve for you to read this. I know I do not deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know that I am sorry. I am sorrier than words can express. Every day I wake up with the guilt of what I did. Every night I go to bed thinking about how I destroyed everything. I am working. I am living on the bare minimum, and for the first time in my life, I understand what you tried to teach me. The value of work, the value of effort, the value of dignity. I kept reading. I am not asking you to forgive me. I am not asking you to speak to me again. I only ask that you know that I understood, that I learned, and that even though it is late, even though I lost everything, I am a different man now. I love you, Dad, and I am sorry. Leo. I folded the letter, put it back in the envelope. Martha looked at me. Are you going to answer? I shook my head. No. She seemed surprised. Why? I looked out the window. Because it is not out of anger or resentment. It is for liberation. I already mourned. I already closed that door. If I answer him, if I open it even a crack, he will come back. And he will come back with another story, with another lie. And I have no more room in my life for lies, only for truth and peace. Today I am 72 years old. My company continues to grow. My employees respect me. Martha and Chloe visit me every week. And I am at peace. A peace I did not have when Leo was in my life. Because that was a false peace, based on lies. Now my peace is real. It is solid. It is mine. And no one can take it from me. Sometimes I think about him, about the boy he was, about the man he could have been, and I feel sadness, but not regret, because I did what a father must do. Teach. I taught him with love for 38 years. He did not listen, so I taught him with consequences, and that was the best lesson I could give him, because he who lies for comfort ends up disabled in dignity. And I chose my dignity, forever. And you? If your own son had lied to you like that, if he had robbed you in that way, if he had watched you cry while he laughed, would you have had the courage to cut him off, or would you have forgiven, just because he is your blood? Leave me your answer in the comments. I want to know what you would do in my place. If this story made you feel something, if it made you think, if it made you question your own values, leave us your comment below. Like, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. and subscribe to William's Revenge Stories, because here we tell real stories that hurt, but also teach us. Stories that remind us that dignity is not negotiable. Never. Thank you for listening to the end. Thank you for being here. See you in the next story.